A girl acted strangely around her dad in the clinic, avoiding eye contact and fidgeting nervously in her chair. At first, the staff thought it was typical appointment anxiety, but when the doctor performed an ultrasound, he stared at the screen in disbelief and began to panic. The early evening air settled over Santa Rosa, a modest city nestled in Sonoma County, California. Dr. Evan Latham glanced at his watch as he hurried out of the examination room. At 52, he had established himself as a respected family physician in the suburban neighborhood, and his independent clinic, opened just a few years ago, was steadily building a patient base. "Rosa," Dr. Latham called, approaching the nurse station. This was left behind by Mrs. Hernandez. He handed over a prescription eyeglass case to the nurse on duty. "I'll call her right away," Rosa replied, taking the case and placing it in the desk drawer. As Dr. Latham turned to head back to his examination room, he scanned the waiting area, now mostly empty as closing time approached. His eyes landed on a pair seated in the corner, a stocky man in a blue polo shirt and a young girl in a red hoodie. Recognition flashed across his face. "Marco!" Dr. Latham called out, walking over with a warm smile. "Marco Halcon, right? I didn't know you were coming in today." Marco rose to his feet, extending his hand. "Dr. Latham, good to see you." "We're neighbors, Marco. You can call me Evan outside the clinic." He turned his attention to the girl, who kept her eyes fixed on the floor. "And this must be Lucia. I don't think we've properly met before, though I've seen you around the neighborhood." Lucia barely acknowledged him with a slight nod, never lifting her gaze. "We'll be with you shortly, Doctor," Latham assured them. "Just finishing up some paperwork." Back in his examination room, Dr. Latham settled behind his desk, organizing the charts from his previous patient. A moment later, Rosa Delgado, his nurse assistant, entered the room. She began methodically sanitizing the examination table and equipment, preparing for the next patient. "Dr. Latham," Rosa said in a lowered voice, "there's something strange about that father and daughter out there." Dr. Latham looked up from his paperwork. "What do you mean?" Rosa's brow furrowed as she wiped down the ultrasound machine. "When I took the girl's vitals, her father wouldn't let her speak, not even to give her own name. He kept answering everything for her." She shook her head. "I had to keep reminding him that I needed to hear from her directly. And the girl, Lucia, she won't make eye contact, not once." Dr. Latham leaned back in his chair. "I know them, Rosa. They live just 3 houses down from me. Marco can be a bit authoritative. Some fathers are like that." "I'm Mexican too, Doctor." "Latham," Rosa replied, "and this isn't cultural. This is something else." She paused, then shrugged. "But you know them better than I do. Maybe it's just how their family dynamic works." She handed him the girl's chart, and Dr. Latham's eyes widened as he reviewed the listed symptoms. 14 years old with pregnancy symptoms, he murmured. Rosa nodded grimly. "That's why I'm concerned." "Send them in, Doctor," Latham said, straightening his white coat and composing his expression. The door opened, and Marco guided Lucia into the room with a firm hand on her shoulder. The girl moved as if she were walking on eggshells, her body tense, her red hoodie hanging loosely over her frame. "Thank you for seeing us, Doctor," Marco said, taking the chair beside the examination table. "Especially this late." "Of course," Dr. Latham replied. "What seems to be the problem?" Marco cleared his throat, looking uncomfortable. "It's not easy to say this, but my daughter is pregnant." Despite having seen it on the chart, hearing it stated so bluntly made Dr. Latham's stomach tighten. He looked at Lucia, who remained silent, staring at her hands, folded in her lap. "I see," Dr. Latham said carefully. "Lucia, how have you been feeling?" Before she could answer, Marco interjected. "She's been having morning sickness, fatigue, and lately she's been complaining about abdominal pain." Dr. Latham kept his focus on Lucia. Lucia, would you prefer to answer these questions yourself? The girl gave a barely perceptible nod. And how did this pregnancy occur? Dr. Latham asked, directing his question to Lucia. Again, Marco answered. She has a boyfriend. We don't want to talk about him. His tone made it clear the subject was closed. Doctor, Marco continued, leaning forward, we need this to stay confidential. No one can know about this. Not our neighbors, not anyone. Patient confidentiality is standard protocol, Mr. Halcon, Doctor, Latham assured him, though he found the emphasis odd. I can't discuss any patient's case with others. Good, good, Marco nodded. Dr. Latham turned to Lucia. I'd like to perform an ultrasound to check on the baby and determine how far along you are. Is that okay with you, Lucia? She nodded, still not meeting his eyes. Rosa will help you onto the examination table, Dr. Latham said, preparing the ultrasound machine. You'll need to lift your shirt just above your abdomen. Rosa gently guided Lucia to the table. The girl winced as she lay back. Does that hurt? Rosa asked softly. Lucia nodded. The abdominal pain has been getting worse, Marco explained from his chair. Dr. Latham applied the gel to Lucia's abdomen, noting how she flinched at his touch. He moved the transducer across her belly, watching the screen intently. What he saw made him pause. This is... He began, adjusting the machine for a better view. Lucia, you appear to be approximately 28 weeks pregnant. Marco's eyes widened. That can't be right. It hasn't been that long. Dr. Latham looked at him sharply. Have you taken her to an obstetrician before? No, Marco said. This is our first doctor visit. Dr. Latham continued examining the ultrasound image. It's a girl, he said, then frowned. But I'm seeing some concerning signs. Her abdomen doesn't match typical growth patterns for 28 weeks. This suggests what we call intrauterine growth restriction, or IUGR. What does that mean? Marco asked. It means the baby isn't growing at a normal rate. This can happen due to problems with the placenta, maternal health issues, or fetal conditions. Dr. Latham moved the transducer again, monitoring carefully. I'm also detecting an irregular fetal heartbeat. He turned to face Marco directly. Mr. Halcon, I strongly recommend you take Lucia to the hospital immediately. She needs specialized care that I can't provide here in my clinic. Marco's face darkened. Hospital? Why can't you just give her some medicine? This requires advanced monitoring and possibly intervention, Dr. Latham explained patiently. The hospital has the equipment and specialists needed to monitor the baby's development properly. They can perform Doppler studies to assess blood flow to the baby and check for any organ under development. Marco looked resistant, but Dr. Latham continued firmly. I can give you a prescription for prenatal vitamins, calcium, and folic acid to help with nutrition, but that's not enough. She needs to be seen at the hospital. He wrote out the prescription and handed it to Marco. The pharmacy next door is still open. You can fill this while Nurse Rosa helps clean up Lucia. Marco glanced hesitantly between the doctor and his daughter. She'll be fine, Doctor, Latham assured him. We'll just clean off the gel and print out the ultrasound images. She'll join you at the pharmacy in a few minutes. Marco reluctantly took the prescription and left the room, looking back at Lucia one last time before closing the door. As soon as he was gone, Rosa began gently wiping the gel from Lucia's abdomen. You're going to be okay, sweetie, she said softly. Lucia's eyes suddenly welled with tears. She kicks when she hears his voice, she whispered. I hate that she likes him. Dr. Latham and Rosa exchanged alarmed glances. The statement hung in the air, pregnant with ambiguous meaning. Lucia, Dr. Latham said carefully. What do you mean by that? But Lucia had retreated back into silence. Her momentary openness vanished. Dr. Latham tried to make sense of her words. Perhaps she was upset about her pregnancy and projecting those feelings onto her father? Or maybe Marco had been angry about the pregnancy, and she was expressing resentment. "What's done is done," he said gently. "Your father brought you here because he cares about your health. Now we need to focus on making sure you and the baby are okay. That's why it's so important that you go to the hospital right away." He handed Lucia the printed ultrasound image, and she took it, her gaze fixed on the black and white picture. To her eyes, the image looked more like an abstract blur than anything recognizable. Through the glass panel in the door, Dr. Latham could see Marco returning from the pharmacy. The moment was lost. Rosa helped Lucia sit up, and they prepared to leave. Dr. Latham watched as Marco collected his daughter, his hand firmly on her shoulder as they exited the clinic. After Marco and Lucia left, Rosa returned to the examination room, her face troubled as she gathered the remaining ultrasound printouts. 9 o'clock, she announced, looking at her watch. "That's it for today, right?" Dr. Latham nodded, still disturbed by Lucia's cryptic statement. "Yes, they were our last patients." Rosa began shutting down the ultrasound machine, her movements brisk, but her expression pensive. "That was strange, don't you think?" she finally asked. "The girl hiding her pregnancy for 28 weeks? And what she said when her father left the room?" "I know," Dr. Latham agreed, leaning against his desk. "It was definitely unusual." "What do you think she meant?" Rosa pressed. "About the baby kicking when she hears his voice, and her saying she hates that the baby likes him?" Dr. Latham ran a hand through his hair. "I'm assuming she must have hidden the pregnancy from her father all this time. That's why he only just brought her in. Maybe he was angry when he found out, and that's why she's expressing those feelings." Rosa wasn't convinced. "But she specifically said the baby kicks when she hears her father's voice, and she doesn't like that. Doesn't that seem odd to you?" "It could be teenage hormones colliding with pregnancy hormones," Dr. Latham suggested, though the explanation felt insufficient even to him. Mood swings and emotional volatility are common in both. Rosa nodded slowly, though doubt lingered in her eyes. "I hope they go to the hospital like you told them to." "Me too," Dr. Latham said. "That baby needs proper monitoring." They finished closing the clinic, turning off lights and locking cabinets. The other staff had already departed, leaving just the two of them to secure the building. They walked out together into the cool night air, the parking lot nearly empty. "Have a good night, Doctor," Rosa said, heading toward her car. "You too, Rosa. See you tomorrow." Dr. Latham climbed into his sedan, the engine humming to life as he pulled out of the parking lot. His mind kept replaying the examination, searching for clues in the interaction between father and daughter. Something felt off, but he couldn't quite place it. As he turned into his neighborhood, the streetlights cast long shadows on the quiet suburban street. He slowed as he approached the Halcon residence, 3 houses away from his own. Their car was parked in the driveway. "They didn't go to the hospital," he muttered to himself, a flicker of concern igniting in his chest. He continued driving to his house, pulled into his driveway, and shut off the engine. Sitting in the darkness of his car, he debated with himself. Maybe they didn't understand the seriousness of the situation, the irregular heartbeat, the growth restriction. These weren't minor issues, especially for a 14-year-old mother. He should just go inside, have dinner, and call it a night. It wasn't his responsibility to chase down patients who ignored his medical advice. But Lucia's words echoed in his mind. "She kicks when she hears his voice. I hate that she likes him." With a sigh, Dr. Latham got out of his car and walked back down the street to the Halcon house. The lights were on inside, a warm glow emanating from the windows. He hesitated, then knocked firmly on the front door. After a moment, the door swung open, and Marco stood there, surprise flashing across his face, before he composed it into a neutral expression. "Dr. Latham, is everything okay?" "I was just checking in, Doctor," Latham said, trying to keep his tone casual. "I noticed your car was here, and I was concerned since I had recommended you take Lucia to the hospital right away." Marco's expression shifted, almost imperceptibly. "Ah, yes. Thank you for your concern. Lucia has gone to the hospital with her mother. I stayed behind to finish some work." Dr. Latham blinked, caught off guard by this information. This was the first mention of Lucia's mother being in the picture. "I see," he said carefully. "That's good to hear. I was worried about the baby's condition." "Yes, well, she's in good hands now," Marco said, his tone clipped. "Thank you for stopping by, Doctor, but it's getting late, and I have work to finish." "Of course," Dr. Latham nodded. "Sorry to disturb you. Good night, Mr. Halcon." "Good night?" The door shut firmly behind him, leaving Dr. Latham standing on the porch with a gnawing unease in his gut. As he made his way back home, Marco's explanation played over in his mind. He could only hope it had been the truth. Inside his kitchen, Dr. Latham opened the refrigerator and stared at its contents, his appetite diminished by the nagging sense that something was wrong with the girl. He grabbed leftovers from the previous night's dinner, chicken pasta, and placed it in the microwave. As he waited for his food to heat, Rosa's concerns echoed in his mind. The way Marco had controlled the conversation, answering questions meant for Lucia. The girl's reluctance to make eye contact, her cryptic comment about the baby. And now, Marco's claim that Lucia had gone to the hospital with her mother. The microwave beeped, but Dr. Latham barely noticed. A realization struck him. Despite living just 3 houses away from the Halcon family for over a year, he had rarely seen Lucia or her mother outside. He knew Marco had a daughter, but their interactions had been limited to the occasional wave from the driveway or brief exchanges at neighborhood gatherings, always with Marco alone. As for his wife, he couldn't even recall the last time he'd seen her. He took his plate to his home office, a small room with a desk, computer, and bookshelves lined with medical texts. Setting his dinner aside, he opened his laptop and navigated to Facebook. "This probably crosses some professional boundaries," he muttered to himself, "but something isn't right." He searched for Marco Halcon and quickly found his profile. Marco's privacy settings were minimal, allowing Dr. Latham to browse through his photos and information. He scrolled through the friend list, searching for someone who might be Lucia's mother. "Daniela Rivera," he read aloud. The name rang faintly familiar, as if he'd heard it long ago. Her profile picture tugged at something deep in his memory. The woman's face bore a subtle resemblance to Lucia, and he was almost certain he had seen her before, somewhere in the past. He clicked on the profile, scanning through the limited information visible to the public. Daniela's page had few recent photos with Marco or Lucia. In fact, scrolling through her timeline, Dr. Latham noticed a distinct absence of family photos for several years. There were pictures of Daniela at work events with friends, but none with her daughter. If they're divorced, that would make sense, he mused aloud. But then, why would Marco say Lucia went to the hospital with her? Dr. Latham knew he was stepping outside professional boundaries by investigating his patient's family this way. But Lucia's well-being and potentially her safety overrode his hesitation. He clicked on the messenger icon and began typing a message to Daniela. "Hello, Ms. Rivera. I apologize for contacting you this way, but I'm Dr. Evan Latham, a family physician who saw your daughter Lucia today. I just wanted to check how the hospital visit is going. Again, sorry for the intrusion." He hesitated before hitting send, aware that this message might anger her or cause confusion. But concern for Lucia won out, and he sent the message. Dr. Latham ate his dinner while occasionally glancing at the screen for a response. None came. He cleaned his plate, changed into more comfortable clothes, and prepared for bed, checking his phone one last time before turning in. As he lay in bed staring at the ceiling, his phone chimed with a notification. He grabbed it quickly, seeing a message from Daniela Rivera. What hospital visit? Is something wrong with Lucia? Before he could type a response, his phone began ringing, a Facebook call from Daniela. He sat up in bed and answered. Hello? Dr. Latham speaking. Doctor, what's going on? Daniela's voice was tense with worry. What do you mean about a hospital visit? I'm not at any hospital with Lucia. Dr. Latham's stomach sank. Ms. Rivera, I saw your daughter at my clinic this evening. She was brought in by her father, Marco. She's pregnant, approximately 28 weeks along. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end of the line. That's impossible, Daniela whispered. I haven't seen Lucia in almost 3 years. Marco and I have been divorced for 10 years. He has full custody, and I'm not allowed near her. Dr. Latham closed his eyes, pieces beginning to fall into place. Ms. Rivera, I need to explain the situation clearly. Lucia came to my clinic with Marco this evening. She's in the 3rd trimester of pregnancy with intrauterine growth restriction, which means the fetus isn't growing at a normal rate. This can happen due to problems with the placenta, maternal health issues, or fetal conditions. He paused to take a breath. I also detected an irregular fetal heartbeat. I advised them to go to the hospital immediately so specialists could perform Doppler studies and assess the baby's development. If there's organ underdevelopment, especially in the lungs and brain, there are treatments that could help before it's too late. Daniela was silent for a long moment before responding. Oh my God, she finally said, her voice breaking. My baby. She's only 14. How could this happen? Who did this to her? Marco said she has a boyfriend, Dr. Latham replied, though he was now questioning everything Marco had told him. I don't know what to do, Daniela said, sounding overwhelmed. I want to see her right now, but I'm not allowed anywhere near her. The restraining order... She broke off. Please, doctor, make sure she's okay. If she's not, call the police. I don't care if Marco reports me for violating the order. This is my daughter we're talking about. I understand, Doctor, Latham assured her. But we need to be careful. Lucia is in a delicate condition, and we don't want to trigger premature labor by causing her additional stress. You're right, Daniela agreed reluctantly. What will you do? I'll check on her again, Doctor, Latham promised, and I'll keep you updated. For now, it's probably best if you stay where you are. After ending the call, Doctor, Latham accessed his clinic's electronic medical records from his laptop. He pulled up the ultrasound images from Lucia's examination, studying them carefully. The images confirmed his initial assessment: restricted growth, potentially compromised placental function, and concerning indications of decreased blood flow to the fetus. This meant less oxygen and fewer nutrients were reaching the baby, a situation that could rapidly deteriorate. The clock on his bedside table read 10:15 p.m. It was late for house calls, but the man had clearly lied to him while his daughter needed medical attention. Dr. Latham decided this couldn't wait until morning. By then, the man might be at work or come up with another excuse. Dr. Latham quickly changed back into street clothes and headed out of his house. The night had grown cooler, a light fog beginning to settle over the suburban neighborhood. The Halcon house stood silhouetted against the night sky, its windows still illuminated. He approached the front door with determination, prepared to confront Marco about his lie and insist that Lucia receive immediate medical care. He knocked firmly, rehearsing what he would say when Marco answered. But when the door opened, it wasn't Marco who stood in the doorway. It was Lucia. Her eyes widened slightly at the sight of him. "Doctor!" "Latham?" she whispered, glancing nervously over her shoulder. "Lucia," he said gently. "Did you go to the hospital?" She shook her head, her fingers fidgeting with the hem of her hoodie. "Lucia, I need you to tell me the truth," Dr. Latham said, keeping his voice low. "What's happening here? Why did you hide your pregnancy for so long?" Lucia opened her mouth to speak, but before she could say anything, Marco's voice boomed from inside the house. "Who is it, Lucia? Is that the delivery guy? What's taking so long?" Fear flashed across Lucia's face. "Please go," she whispered, already closing the door. "Please." Dr. Latham put his hand on the door to stop it from closing completely. "Lucia, I can help you. Let me help you." "I can't," she breathed, pushing the door shut. Dr. Latham stood on the porch, torn. Technically, he had done his duty. He'd informed Marco of the risks and urged him to seek hospital care. He couldn't force them to follow his advice. But something about that house felt off, deeply wrong, and he couldn't bring himself to walk away. He had made a promise to Daniela, and that promise still held weight. As he turned to leave, the front door swung open again. This time, Marco stood in the doorway, his expression dark with annoyance. "Dr. Latham," he said, voice tight. "Why do you keep coming to my house? It's late in the evening." "Mr. Halcon, Doctor," Latham began, struggling to keep his tone professional. "I'm concerned about Lucia's condition. You told me she had gone to the hospital with her mother, but I've just learned that's not true." Marco's jaw tightened. "You've been checking up on me? Who I take my daughter to see is none of your business." "As her physician, her health is my business," Dr. Latham countered. "The baby's condition is serious. Delaying treatment could lead to complications, or worse." Marco glared at him, about to respond, when a light came on in the neighbor's house next door. A curtain twitched, someone clearly watching the late-night confrontation unfolding on the porch. Marco's demeanor shifted abruptly. "Perhaps we should continue this conversation inside," he suggested, his voice suddenly conciliatory. "No need to disturb the whole neighborhood." Dr. Latham hesitated, then nodded. Marco stepped back, allowing him to enter the house. The living room was sparsely decorated, with a worn couch, a coffee table, and a television mounted on the wall. Lucia sat on the edge of the couch, her hands folded in her lap, eyes fixed on the floor. "Lucia," Dr. Latham said gently, "how are you feeling?" Marco interrupted before she could answer. "She's fine, just tired. Pregnant women get tired, right, Doctor?" Dr. Latham turned to face Marco directly. "Mr. Halcon, you need to understand the seriousness of the situation. The ultrasound showed intrauterine growth restriction and an irregular fetal heartbeat. These conditions require immediate medical attention." "And we'll get that attention," Marco replied, his tone placating but his eyes cold. "First thing tomorrow morning." "Why wait?" Dr. Latham pressed. "Why not tonight?" "Because it's late," Marco said, gesturing at the clock on the wall. "Lucia needs rest. She's exhausted, and dragging her to an emergency room where we'll sit for hours isn't what she needs right now." "The baby could be in distress," Dr. Latham argued. "Every hour counts in a situation like this." Marco's expression hardened. "The baby won't die overnight." Dr. Latham flinched at the callousness of the statement. Before he could respond, the doorbell rang. Marco's shoulders relaxed slightly. "That'll be the delivery. I ordered dinner for us." He turned to Lucia. "Wait here with the doctor. I'll get the food." As Marco walked to the door, Dr. Latham took the opportunity to move closer to Lucia. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. "Is there something you want to tell me?" Lucia glanced toward the door where her father was paying the delivery person, looking for spare changes in his pockets. Then quickly, Lucia reached into her pocket and pulled out several folded photographs. She thrust them into Dr. Latham's hand just as Marco turned back toward them. Dr. Latham discreetly slipped the photos into his jacket pocket without looking at them. Lucia leaned closer and whispered, "More in bedroom." "I'll help you, Doctor," Latham promised, keeping his voice low. "You're being very brave." Marco returned with a pizza box. "What are you two talking about?" "Lucia was telling me she's hungry," Dr. Latham improvised smoothly. "Which is good. She needs proper nutrition." "See? I'm a good father," Marco said, placing the pizza on the coffee table. "I make sure she eats well." He turned to Dr. Latham, his demeanor shifting from defensive to dismissive. "Now, I appreciate your concern, Doctor, but it's getting late. As you said yourself, Pregnant women need rest. If she doesn't get proper sleep, that would be bad for the baby too, wouldn't it? Dr. Latham recognized the dismissal. Yes, rest is important, he conceded, but so is medical care. And she'll get it first thing tomorrow morning, Marco insisted. I promise. Seeing no way to push further without escalating the situation, Dr. Latham reluctantly headed toward the door. I'll check in tomorrow to see how the hospital visit went, he said, a clear message that he wouldn't let this drop. Of course, Marco replied, his smile not reaching his eyes. Good night, Doctor. As Dr. Latham left, he glanced back through the window and saw Marco and Lucia sitting at the table, the pizza box open between them. Marco was talking, his gestures animated, while Lucia sat motionless, her eyes downcast. Once back in his house, Dr. Latham quickly pulled the photographs from his pocket. What he saw made his blood run cold. There were 4 photos, each showing Lucia in various stages of undress on what appeared to be a bed, with Marco clearly visible in the images. The photos documented abuse in graphic detail. My God, Dr. Latham whispered, his hands shaking with rage and disgust. He quickly placed the photos face down on his desk, unable to look at them any longer. Lucia's words from the clinic echoed in his mind with horrifying new context. She kicks when she hears his voice. I hate that she likes him. The truth crashed down on him like a physical weight. Marco wasn't just Lucia's father, he was the father of her baby. There was no boyfriend. There was only a predator and his victim, living just 3 houses away. Dr. Latham reached for his phone and dialed 911. Emergency services, came the dispatcher's voice. What's your emergency? I need to report child abuse and endangerment, Dr. Latham said, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside him. A 14-year-old girl who is 28 weeks pregnant. The father is the abuser, and the girl and her unborn child need immediate medical attention. While waiting for the police to arrive, Dr. Latham's mind raced. The photos in his possession were damning evidence, but he needed to ensure they reached the proper authorities. He also needed to alert Daniela to what was happening. He took photos of the printed photographs with his phone, making sure the images were clear enough to serve as evidence if the originals were somehow lost or destroyed. Then he sent them to Daniela through Facebook Messenger, along with a brief message explaining that he had contacted the police and they were on their way to Marco's house. His phone rang almost immediately, Daniela calling back. I'm coming there right now, she said, her voice raw with emotion. That monster, I'll kill him myself. Daniela, please let the police handle this, Dr. Latham urged. They're on their way. The most important thing right now is getting Lucia safely out of that house and to a hospital. How could this happen? Daniela sobbed. How could he do this to his own daughter? I knew something was wrong when he fought so hard for custody, but I never thought he would. I'm so sorry, Doctor, Latham said, at a loss for more comforting words. But Lucia reached out for help tonight. She was incredibly brave, and now we can get her away from him. I'm still coming, Daniela insisted. I need to be there for my daughter. Of course, Dr. Latham agreed. Just please let the police do their job first. After hanging up, Dr. Latham paced his living room, checking the window every few minutes for signs of police arrival. It felt like hours, though his clock told him only 20 minutes had passed since his call. Finally, he saw the flashing lights of police cruisers turning onto their street, moving slowly without sirens, a tactical approach to avoid alerting Marco. Dr. Latham hurried outside to meet them. 3 police cars parked a short distance from the Halcon house. 6 officers emerged, and Dr. Latham approached the one who appeared to be in charge. Dr. Evan Latham, he introduced himself. I made the call. The officer nodded. Detective Morales, you have evidence of sexual abuse? Dr. Latham handed over the photographs. These were given to me by the victim less than an hour ago. She indicated there are more in the house. Detective Morales examined the photos, his expression hardening. "And the girl is pregnant?" "Yes, 28 weeks. There are serious medical concerns for both her and the baby. She needs hospital care immediately." Another officer approached. "The house is quiet, Detective. Lights still on inside." "All right," Detective Morales said, handing the photos to another officer who placed them in an evidence bag. "Dr. Latham, please wait here. We'll approach the house." The officers moved toward the Halcon residence, positioning themselves strategically around the property. Detective Morales and another officer went to the front door while the others covered potential escape routes. Dr. Latham watched as Detective Morales knocked firmly on the door. No response. He knocked again, louder this time, announcing police presence. Still nothing. The officers exchanged glances. Detective Morales spoke into his radio, and moments later, the officers at the back of the house confirmed that they could see movement inside, but no one approaching the door. After several more attempts, Detective Morales made a decision. "We're going in," he announced to his team. "Possible endangered minor inside." One officer brought forward a battering ram. They positioned it against the door, and with 3 solid blows, the door frame splintered and gave way. Dr. Latham remained at the perimeter as instructed, straining to see what was happening. The officers entered the house, their voices calling out, "Police! Santa Rosa! Police Department!" Neighbors had begun to emerge from their homes, drawn by the commotion. The couple next door to Marco, an older pair who had watched the earlier confrontation from their window, approached Dr. Latham. "What's happening?" the woman asked, clutching her robe closed at the neck. Before Dr. Latham could answer, shouts erupted from inside the house, followed by officers rushing upstairs. Then came more shouting, this time from outside the house. "There! On the roof!" someone yelled. Dr. Latham looked up to see Marco climbing out of an attic window onto the roof above the garage. He was pulling Lucia behind him, his grip tight on her wrist as she struggled to maintain her balance on the steep slope. "Stay back!" Marco yelled as he saw the officers below. "I'll push her off if you come any closer. We're a family. If I'm going down, we're all going down together." Lucia was crying, her free hand protectively covering her pregnant belly. "Please don't," she begged, her voice carrying in the night air. "Please help me." The police below immediately backed off, radioing for additional support. Dr. Latham heard them requesting paramedics and what sounded like an inflatable landing pad. "Marco," Dr. Latham called out, stepping forward despite the officer's warning. "Don't do this. The police have the photographs. They know everything." Marco's face contorted with rage. "She gave you those pictures, you little bitch," he spat at Lucia. "After everything I've done for you, you don't deserve to live." A car screeched to a halt at the edge of the police perimeter. Daniela leapt out, rushing toward the house before an officer intercepted her. "That's my daughter!" she screamed, fighting against the officer's restraint. "Lucia! I'm here, baby! I'm here!" Lucia's tear-streaked face turned toward her mother's voice. "Mom?" The momentary distraction was enough for Marco to pull Lucia closer to the edge of the roof. The officers below had managed to deploy a large inflatable safety cushion, positioning it beneath where they stood. "Marco Halcon," Detective Morales called through a megaphone. "This is Detective Morales with the Santa Rosa Police Department. Release the girl and surrender yourself. There's nowhere for you to go." Dr. Latham could see officers now positioning themselves at the attic window, ready to apprehend Marco from behind. But Marco saw them too. "Stay back!" he shouted, yanking Lucia closer to the edge. "I'll jump with her if I have to." Daniela broke free from the officer holding her back. "Please, Marco. She's our daughter. Don't hurt her." "She's mine," Marco snarled. "You never deserved her. You never deserved either of them." In that moment, Dr. Latham realized with horror that Marco was referring to both Lucia and her unborn child as his possessions, his to control, his to destroy. The officers at the attic window began to emerge onto the roof. Marco, seeing his escape route blocked and the authorities closing in, made his decision. "No!" Dr. Latham shouted, but it was too late. Marco shoved Lucia off the roof. She fell with a terrified scream, landing on the inflatable safety cushion below. Officers immediately rushed to her aid, while others surged toward Marco, who attempted to jump in a different direction to escape. He didn't make it far. 2 officers tackled him mid-leap, bringing him down onto the roof surface with enough force to knock the wind from him. They quickly handcuffed him and began the process of bringing him down safely, though with considerably less gentleness than they had shown Lucia. Dr. Latham rushed to where Lucia lay on the safety cushion, paramedics already checking her vital signs. "I'm her doctor," he explained, kneeling beside her. "Lucia, can you hear me?" Her eyes fluttered open, tears streaming down her face. "The baby," she whispered. "Is the baby okay?" Dr. Latham placed a gentle hand on her abdomen, feeling for movement. "Let's get you to the hospital to make sure, but I think she's going to be just fine. You were very brave, Lucia. Very brave." The night air filled with the flashing lights of police cars and ambulances. Officers led a handcuffed Marco toward a waiting cruiser, his face contorted with rage. As they passed Daniela, who stood anxiously watching the paramedics tend to Lucia, Marco spat in her direction. "This is your fault," he snarled. "You were never a real mother to her." Daniela lunged forward, her composure shattering. "You monster! What you did to our daughter, you're not human." An officer stepped between them, guiding Daniela back, while his colleagues pushed Marco toward the police car. "He should rot in prison forever," Daniela sobbed as Dr. Latham approached her. "I always knew something was wrong with him, but this—" "You couldn't have known," Dr. Latham said gently. "Predators like Marco are experts at hiding their true nature." The paramedics had stabilized Lucia on a stretcher and were preparing to load her into the ambulance. Dr. Latham guided Daniela toward them. "She needs you now," he said. "Focus on Lucia, not him." Daniela nodded, wiping tears from her face as she approached the stretcher. When Lucia saw her mother, her eyes filled with fresh tears. "Mom," she whispered, reaching out a trembling hand. "I missed you." Daniela took her daughter's hand, kissing it as tears streamed down her face. "I missed you too, baby. So much. I'm here now, and I'm never leaving you again." Dr. Latham approached the lead paramedic. "I'm her physician. I'd like to accompany you to the hospital, if that's all right." The paramedic nodded. "We could use your input on her condition, Doctor." As they loaded Lucia into the ambulance, Detective Morales approached Dr. Latham. "Doctor, we'll need to speak with you at the hospital. And you too, ma'am," he added to Daniela. "But for now, go with your daughter. We'll meet you there." Daniela climbed into the ambulance alongside Lucia, never letting go of her daughter's hand. Dr. Latham followed, sitting opposite them as the paramedics continued monitoring Lucia's vital signs. In the ambulance, Dr. Latham used his stethoscope to listen to the baby's heartbeat. "The heartbeat is still irregular, but it's strong," he told Lucia. "The fall doesn't seem to have caused any immediate trauma, but the hospital will do a more thorough examination." The ambulance sped through the quiet streets of Santa Rosa, siren wailing. Dr. Latham watched as Daniela stroked Lucia's hair, whispering reassurances. Despite the years of separation, their bond remained, a testament to the resilience of family ties in the face of monstrous interference. They arrived at the hospital, where an obstetric emergency team was waiting. Dr. Latham briefly explained the situation to the attending physician, Dr. Elena Vasquez, a specialist in high-risk pregnancies. 28 weeks with IUGR and fetal arrhythmia, he summarized as they wheeled Lucia into an examination room. Also potential trauma from a fall, though she landed on an inflatable safety cushion. Dr. Vasquez nodded. "We'll take it from here, Doctor. Latham, thank you for your quick action tonight." As the medical team began their work, Dr. Latham joined Daniela in the waiting area. Detective Morales arrived shortly after, accompanied by another officer and a woman who introduced herself as Rebecca Miller from Child Protective Services. "We need to understand exactly what happened tonight," Detective Morales began. "Dr. Latham, please start from the beginning." Dr. Latham recounted the events of the evening, from Lucia's visit to his clinic to his growing concerns and eventual discovery of the truth through the photographs. "Marco claimed the baby's father was a boyfriend," he explained. But Lucia's comment at the clinic about the baby kicking when she heard his voice takes on a horrifying new meaning now. Detective Morales nodded grimly. "We found a hidden room in the basement, just as you suspected from what Lucia told you. It appears to be where much of the abuse took place. There were cameras, recording equipment, and other items." Daniela covered her mouth, stifling a sob. "His bedroom contained hundreds of photographs of Lucia," the detective continued. "Some dating back several years. This has been ongoing for a long time." "How could this happen?" Daniela asked, her voice breaking. "How could no one notice?" "Predators like Marco are skilled at isolation and manipulation," Ms. Miller from CPS explained. "They gradually sever their victims' ties to support systems, friends, family, even school. We'll have a clearer picture once Lucia is able to share her statement." Detective Morales turned to Daniela. "Ms. Rivera, we need to understand how Marco gained custody of Lucia. It might help us build a stronger case against him." Daniela wiped her eyes, her expression pained. "I'm not proud of what happened. After Marco and I divorced 10 years ago, I was a single mom working nights at a casino. We were struggling financially." She drew in a steadying breath before continuing. "I started attending underground poker games, thinking I could stretch my paychecks and give Lucia a better life, but it quickly spiraled into an addiction. One night the house was raided, and that's when the police found out I'd left Lucia, just 7 years old at the time, home alone." Tears streamed down her face. "Marco seized the opportunity. He portrayed himself as the stable, responsible parent. The court gave him custody, and I was only allowed supervised visitation. Then he moved to Santa Rosa and got a restraining order, claiming I was unstable and a bad influence on Lucia." "He systematically isolated her," Ms. Miller nodded. "It's a common tactic." "I've spent the last 3 years rebuilding my life and moving to this neighborhood," Daniela said. "I have a stable job now and an apartment with a second bedroom ready for Lucia. I've been saving every penny I could to fight for custody again, but Marco shut down every attempt I made to reach her." Dr. Vasquez emerged from the examination room before anyone could respond. They all turned to her expectantly. "Lucia is stable," she reported. "The baby's heartbeat remains irregular, but we've started her on medication to help with that. We've also begun steroid injections to accelerate fetal lung maturity, which is crucial in cases of IUGR. She's severely malnourished and showing signs of long-term stress and trauma, but physically she should recover." "And the baby?" Daniela asked. "We're monitoring the situation closely," Dr. Vasquez said. "The next 48 hours will be critical. The fall doesn't appear to have caused any placental abruption, which is good news. But the pre-existing conditions, the growth restriction and heart irregularities, remain concerning." "Can we see her?" Dr. Latham asked. Dr. Vasquez nodded. "She's asking for her mother, and you too, Dr. Latham. She says you saved her life." The hospital room was dimly lit, the steady beeping of monitors creating a rhythmic backdrop. Lucia lay propped up on pillows, an IV in her arm, and fetal monitors strapped across her swollen abdomen. Despite everything she had endured, there was something different about her now, a spark in her eyes that hadn't been there before. The weight of her secret had been lifted. Daniela approached her daughter's bedside, her steps tentative, as if afraid Lucia might disappear. "Lucia," she whispered, gently taking her daughter's hand. "My brave, beautiful girl." Lucia's eyes welled with tears. "Mom," she said, her voice stronger than it had been earlier, "you came back for me." "I never stopped trying to come back," Daniela assured her, perching carefully on the edge of the bed. "Your father, he made it impossible. But that's over now. He can never hurt you again." Dr. Latham stood respectfully at the foot of the bed, giving mother and daughter space for their reunion. Detective Morales and Ms. Miller from CPS waited near the door, understanding the delicacy of the moment. After a few minutes, Lucia looked up at Dr. Latham. "Thank you," she said simply, "for believing me, for helping us." "You're the brave one, Lucia," Dr. Latham replied. "You found the courage to reach out for help, and that's what saved you and your baby." Detective Morales stepped forward. "Lucia, I know this is difficult, but we need to ask you some questions to help build our case against your father. Would that be okay?" Lucia glanced at her mother, who squeezed her hand reassuringly. "It's your choice, sweetheart. Whatever you decide, I'm right here with you." Lucia nodded slowly. "I want to tell the truth, all of it." "Take your time," Ms. Miller said gently, "and if you need to stop at any point, just say so." Lucia took a deep breath and began to speak, her voice gaining strength as she continued. "There was never any boyfriend," she confirmed what they already suspected. "My father, he's the father of my baby too." She described how Marco had begun abusing her shortly after gaining full custody, how he had systematically isolated her from the outside world. "He pulled me out of school, saying he would homeschool me, but there were never any real lessons. Just enough so I could answer basic questions if anyone asked. The abuse had escalated over the years. Whenever anyone came to the house, he would lock me in the basement. There's a hidden room there that he built. That's where most of it happened." Dr. Latham thought of the evidence the police had found in that basement room and felt a wave of nausea. "When I got pregnant," Lucia continued, "he was angry at first. He talked about forcing me to have an abortion, but then he changed his mind. He became protective of the baby. He said it was ours." She shuddered at the memory. "The baby started kicking a few months ago. I noticed she would kick whenever she heard his voice. It made me sick. I hated that she responded to him." Lucia placed a protective hand over her belly. "But it's not her fault. She's innocent in all this." "Of course she is," Daniela assured her. "I started feeling really sick about 2 weeks ago," Lucia explained. "Bad stomach pains and dizziness. At first he ignored it, but when I could barely get out of bed, he finally decided to take me to a doctor. That's when we went to Dr. Latham's clinic." Detective Morales nodded, taking notes. "The photographs you gave to Dr. Latham, how did you manage to get those?" "My father. He took pictures all the time," she said softly. "He kept them in a box in his closet. I snuck some out while he was in the shower this evening before we left for the clinic, knowing he would be out of the house to take us there. It's been a really long time since he let me go outside. I didn't know what to do with the pictures, whom to trust, but when Dr. Latham came to our house, I thought maybe he could help." "You did exactly the right thing," Dr. Latham assured her. Dr. Vasquez returned to check on Lucia and evaluate the fetal monitoring strips. "The medication seems to be helping with the heart irregularities," she reported. "And your own vital signs are stabilizing, Lucia. That's excellent news." "What happens now?" Lucia asked, looking between the adults in the room. Ms. Miller stepped forward. "You'll stay in the hospital until you're medically cleared to leave. After that, we'll need to determine the best living situation for you and your baby." "She's coming home with me," Daniela said firmly. "I've prepared for this, for years. I have a room for her, savings for her care, everything." Ms. Miller nodded. "Given the circumstances, that seems like the most appropriate placement. We'll need to conduct a home evaluation, but as long as everything checks out, I don't foresee any issues with Lucia being placed in your care." "And what about my father?" Lucia asked hesitantly. "He's in custody," Detective Morales assured her. "Given the evidence we've already collected, the photographs, the hidden room, your testimony, he'll be facing multiple felony charges: child abuse, sexual assault, incest, child endangerment, and more. He won't be getting out of prison for a very, very long time." Lucia nodded, a mix of emotions crossing her face: relief, sadness, and something like closure. "What about the baby?" she asked, turning to Dr. Vasquez. "Will she be okay?" "We're doing everything we can," Dr. Vasquez promised. "The next few weeks will be crucial. We'll continue the steroid injections to help her lungs develop, monitor her heart closely, and focus on improving your nutrition to give her the best chance possible." "I want to keep her," Lucia said quietly, surprising everyone in the room. "I know I'm young, but she's not responsible for how she came into this world. I don't want her to suffer for what he did." Daniela squeezed her daughter's hand. "We'll raise her together," she promised. "You, me, and your daughter. She'll be loved and protected. Always." As the night deepened, Detective Morales and Ms. Miller departed, promising to return the following day. Dr. Vasquez completed her examination and left to check on other patients. Daniela settled into the chair beside Lucia's bed, unwilling to leave her daughter's side even for a moment. Dr. Latham prepared to leave as well, his professional duties fulfilled, but his heart still heavy with the weight of everything he had witnessed. "Dr. Latham," Lucia called as he reached the door. "Thank you for listening, for seeing that something was wrong." He turned back to her, struck by the resilience in her young face. "I'm just glad I could help." "You did more than help," Daniela said. "You saved them both when everyone else looked away." As Dr. Latham drove home in the early hours of the morning, the streets of Santa Rosa quiet and empty, he reflected on the events of the night. His decision to follow his instincts, to push past professional boundaries when a child's welfare was at stake, had made all the difference. The neighborhood was silent when he returned, the Halcon house now a crime scene, yellow police tape marking its boundaries. Neighbors would wake to a changed street, a community forced to reckon with the horror that had existed in their midst, unnoticed for years. Dr. Latham entered his home, exhausted but at peace with the choices he had made. In the medical profession, the mandate was clear. First, do no harm. But sometimes doing good required more than just avoiding harm. It required action, courage, and the willingness to see what others missed. As he finally lay down to rest, Dr. Latham thought of Lucia and her unborn daughter, both victims of unspeakable cruelty, both now with a chance at a new beginning. Their road to healing would be long and difficult, but they would not walk it alone. Sometimes, he reflected, as sleep finally claimed him, the most important diagnosis was the one that went beyond medical symptoms, the one that recognized the human suffering beneath the surface, the silent cries for help that came in the form of averted eyes, cryptic words, and brave acts of desperate trust. In the end, it wasn't just medical knowledge that saved lives. It was compassion, attention, and the courage to act when others turned away. A doctor made the horrifying discovery that a young girl was pregnant by her own father, rescuing her from years of unimaginable abuse. With her father locked away for a long prison sentence, they hoped she might finally reclaim some semblance of normalcy and begin to heal. But the doctor would soon realize that even with her abuser behind bars, the nightmare for this young survivor was far from over. The shadows of her past would return in ways no one could have anticipated, threatening to destroy the fragile new life she was trying to build. Before we dive into part 2 of this shocking story, let us know where you're watching from today, and if you like this video, don't forget to subscribe. The autumn breeze rustled through the trees as Dr. Evan Latham pulled into Daniela Rivera's driveway. 3 years had passed since that harrowing night when he had helped rescue Lucia from her father's abuse, and tonight was a simple dinner with what had become his extended family. Inside the modest 2-story house, Dr. Evan was immediately greeted by the energetic 3-year-old Camilla, who collided with his legs in excitement. "And who might this little tornado be?" he asked with a smile, though he knew perfectly well. "That's Camilla," Daniela said warmly. "Camilla, say hello to Doctor." "Evan." "Hello, Doctor," the girl exclaimed, before racing back toward the kitchen. In the dining area, Lucia was setting the table. At 17, she had grown taller, though a certain guardedness remained in her demeanor. "Hi, Dr. Evan," she said, with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Once they were seated and enjoying Lucia's enchiladas, conversation turned to the recent past. "How are you liking your new place?" Daniela asked. "It's been what, 2 years now?" "Almost 3, Dr. Evan replied. "I couldn't stay in that old house anymore, not after everything that happened. Just being there and looking at Marco's house across the street. I couldn't stand it." "How's that neighborhood now?" Daniela inquired. "Has someone moved into Marco's old house?" Dr. Evan shook his head. "I never visit there anymore, except to go to my clinic. I purposefully never check his house. Still don't have the heart to go inside my old place either. My new house is close enough to the clinic, just in a different neighborhood." "We heard about the trial," Daniela said, her voice hardening. "Life in prison. It's what he deserves." "More than deserves," Dr. Evan agreed. "After what the prosecution revealed, I'm only surprised they didn't throw away the key entirely." Dr. Evan noticed Lucia had stopped eating, her gaze fixed distantly on her plate. "How are you doing, Lucia?" he asked gently. "School going well?" She looked up as if startled. "It's okay. Mom's helped a lot with raising Camilla." She turned to Daniela. "Thanks for providing for us and making sure I can still go to school." "You're attending Santa Rosa High School, right?" Dr. Evan asked. "I'm actually heading there tomorrow. They invited me to give a talk for their Cervical Cancer Awareness Day." "Oh, that's right," Daniela nodded. "The HPV vaccine program." Lucia's expression darkened. "Yeah, I guess after everything that happened to me, at least I don't need that vaccine anymore." Her tone was flat, emotionless. An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. Camilla, sensing the mood shift, looked up from her plate with innocent confusion. "Mommy sad?" she asked, reaching for Lucia's hand. "No, baby. Mommy's just tired," Lucia said, softening. "I should get you ready for bed. You have daycare tomorrow, and I need to rest for class." After Lucia took Camilla upstairs, Daniela sighed. "She has good days and bad days. Today seems to be one of the harder ones." "How is she managing overall?" Dr. Evan asked quietly. "We're getting by. Her therapist says she's shown remarkable improvement. The fact that she speaks her mind now is actually progress." Daniela smiled sadly. Marco never let her speak at all. As they cleared the dishes, Daniela commented on the changes to Dr. Evan's clinic. "The expansion, the indoor playground, even the sitter you hired, Camilla loves going there while I'm at work. It's practically become a daycare." Dr. Evan smiled. "It's all inspired by you, Daniela. We created it for Camilla so you could work without worrying about her safety. It's a playground for our patients, but a daycare for Camilla." With the kitchen cleaned, they moved to the living room with glasses of wine. "Your new job is going well?" Dr. Evan asked. "The pay is much better, and I'm being considered for a promotion next month," Daniela beamed. "That's wonderful, Doctor," Evan said sincerely. "I'm proud of you after everything you've been through." When he checked his watch and saw it approaching 11, Dr. Evan stood to leave. "Thank you again for everything," Daniela said at the door. "Your family now," he replied simply. Driving home, Dr. Evan couldn't shake his concern about Lucia's subdued demeanor. Despite 3 years of healing, something in her eyes tonight had reminded him of the frightened girl he'd first encountered in his clinic, a shadow he hadn't seen in months. But perhaps he was overthinking things. Everyone had bad days, even survivors working hard to rebuild their lives. The following morning, Dr. Evan arrived at Santa Rosa High School carrying a box of informational pamphlets. The school's administrative assistant greeted him warmly, directing him toward the multi-purpose hall where his presentation would take place. As he navigated the bustling corridors between classes, he noticed a group of male students huddled in a corner, their attention fixed on a smartphone. Their laughter had an edge to it that made him pause. Drawing closer, he caught a glimpse of what they were viewing, explicit photographs on the screen. His stomach dropped when he recognized the subject of those images. "That's enough," he said firmly, approaching the group. The boys startled, quickly trying to hide the phone. "Hand that over right now, or I'll call the principal and your parents." The tallest boy, clearly the ringleader, slid the phone into his pocket. "We weren't doing anything wrong, sir, just looking at what everyone's seen already." "Everyone?" Dr. Evan echoed, his concern deepening. "It's all over the school network," another boy said with a shrug. "Those pics of that Halcon girl with her dad." Dr. Evan's blood ran cold. Those images had been police evidence, meant to be kept confidential. "This stops now," he said, his voice leaving no room for argument. "What you're doing is not only cruel, but potentially illegal. Those are exploitative images of a minor." The boys shifted uncomfortably under his stern gaze. "I suggest you delete those images immediately and spread the word that anyone sharing them could face serious consequences," he continued. "Now move along to class before I report this incident." The group scattered quickly, leaving Dr. Evans standing in the corridor, his mind racing. How had those photos leaked? Who could have released them? And most importantly, did Lucia know they were circulating? "Dr. Latham?" A voice interrupted his thoughts. He turned to see Principal Samuels approaching. "Thank you for coming today. The students are already gathering in the hall for your presentation." Dr. Evan forced a smile, not wanting to delay the event. "Just had to address some inappropriate behavior in the hallway. I'll explain later." Principal Samuels nodded, leading him toward the multipurpose hall. "The students have been looking forward to your talk. Health education is so important, especially at this age." As they entered the hall, Dr. Evans scanned the rows of seated students, looking for Lucia. He couldn't spot her among the sea of teenage faces. Perhaps she was running late, or maybe she was still in her classroom and would join the assembly later. The principal introduced him, and Dr. Evans stepped up to the podium, setting aside his concerns to focus on the presentation. He explained the basics of HPV infection, its connection to cervical cancer, and the importance of vaccination. As he continued his talk, he noticed several students whispering and glancing at their phones beneath their desks, despite the school's policy against phone use during assemblies. His unease grew, but he maintained his professional composure, determined to deliver the important health information. When he opened the floor for questions, several hands shot up. He called on a girl in the front row who asked about vaccine side effects, followed by a boy curious about the vaccination schedule. Then he pointed to a student in the middle section. The boy stood, a glint in his eye that immediately put Dr. Evan on edge. "Aren't you the doctor who saved Lucia Halcon?" the student asked loudly. A ripple of murmurs spread through the hall. Dr. Evan paused, choosing his words carefully. "Yes, I was Lucia's physician. Her case is well known in town, but I'd prefer to focus on today's health topic rather than individual patient histories." Another student raised her hand. "Is it true that she had her father's baby? That's what everyone's saying." Dr. Evans' jaw tightened. "That's a personal question that only Lucia should answer if she chooses to. I'm here to discuss cervical cancer prevention, not to gossip about a student who has already endured far too much invasion of privacy." A boy in the back row stood without being called on. "Why bother with this vaccine talk when girls like her are just going to—" "That's enough," Principal Samuels interrupted, stepping forward. "This kind of disrespectful behavior is exactly why we need more education, not less." She addressed the assembled students with stern authority. From this moment forward, phones are prohibited during school hours. Any student found with a phone will have it confiscated, and anyone discovered with inappropriate images will be reported to their parents and assigned to detention for a month. As the principal continued admonishing the students, Dr. Evan caught a glimpse of movement at the multi-purpose hall's rear door. A female figure with dark hair was slipping away, moving quickly. Though he only saw her for a split second, something in the way she moved suggested it was Lucia. His instinct was to follow her to make sure she was all right, but he was trapped in the middle of the presentation. Leaving now would only draw more attention to the situation and potentially embarrass Lucia further. For the remainder of the Q&A session, Dr. Evan kept glancing toward the door, hoping to see Lucia return, but she never did. He answered the remaining questions professionally, distributed the informational pamphlets about HPV vaccination and local clinics, including his own, and concluded his presentation. As the students filed out of the hall, guided back to their classrooms by teachers, Dr. Evan couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. The leaked photos, Lucia's absence from school despite leaving home that morning, and now her brief appearance and hasty departure. It all pointed to a troubling situation that went beyond typical teenage drama. "Dr. Latham, could I speak with you for a moment?" Principal Samuels asked as the last of the students exited the hall. "Of course," he replied, still distracted by thoughts of Lucia. They walked toward the administrative offices, the corridors now quiet with students back in their classrooms. "I want to apologize for our students' behavior," the principal began. "What happened in there was unacceptable." "I'm more concerned about the inappropriate photos of Lucia circulating among the student body," Dr. Evans said. "Those images were police evidence from her father's trial. They should never have been made public." Principal Samuel's expression grew grave. "I became aware of this situation just this morning. A teacher confiscated a phone and reported finding those images. We immediately began investigating, but it seems they've spread like wildfire overnight." "Do you know where they originated from? How the students accessed them?" "From what we can tell, they were uploaded to a social media platform and then shared through private messaging apps. We've implemented the phone ban effective immediately, but as you know, these things tend to take on a life of their own." Dr. Evan nodded grimly. "Has Lucia been informed? Is she even here today?" "She was marked absent in her homeroom this morning," Principal Samuels confirmed. "We tried calling her mother, but she's at work and hasn't responded yet." "I'll check in with her myself, Doctor," Evan offered. "But before I go, is there a quiet place I could use to do some research? I'd like to try to trace these images to their source." The principal directed him to the school library. "There's a private research room in the back that faculty use. You're welcome to use it for as long as you need." Dr. Evan thanked her and made his way to the library. The librarian showed him to a small room equipped with a computer and locked door for privacy. Once alone, he accessed the internet and began searching for information about the leaked photos. It didn't take long to find what he was looking for. The images had indeed been uploaded to various platforms within the past 24 hours. Dr. Evan felt sick as he confirmed they were the same photographs Lucia had slipped to him that night 3 years ago. Intimate, exploitative images of a child being abused by her father. Pulling out his phone, he dialed a number he still had saved from the original investigation. "Detective Russell speaking." "Detective, this is Dr. Evan Latham. I need to speak with you urgently about Lucia Halcon." There was a brief pause on the line. "Dr. Latham, it's been a while. What's going on?" "Are you aware that photographs from Marco Halcon's case have been leaked online? They're circulating among students at Lucia's high school." "We received reports early this morning and are already investigating," the detective confirmed. "Those images were confidential police evidence. We're trying to determine how they were accessed and distributed." "Could Marco have posted them from prison somehow?" "It's possible," Detective Russell admitted. Though unlikely, we made sure the original content was taken down years ago. What's circulating now was uploaded recently, within the past few days. It seems like a deliberate attack against the girl and her family. Do you have any leads on who might be behind this? The detective hesitated. Nothing concrete yet. These images could have been saved by anyone before they were removed, or they might have been stored somewhere in the dark web. Our tech team is tracing the uploads back to their source. Can you at least tell me which account posted them initially? I might recognize something that could help. After another pause, the detective provided a username. But I have to warn you, Doctor. Latham, this isn't your responsibility. We appreciate your concern for Lucia, but this is now a police matter. Be careful not to interfere with an ongoing investigation. I understand, Doctor, Evan assured him. I just want to help protect her. She's been through enough already. After ending the call, Doctor, Evan entered the username into the search bar. He quickly found the account, newly created, with no personal information and only one purpose, posting the explicit images of Lucia with her father. Dozens of photographs that had been collected from Marco's bedroom during the police investigation were now publicly displayed. Who would do this, he muttered to himself, scrolling through the account information. The profile picture caught his attention, a shadowy figure with emo-style hair hanging over the face, obscuring the person's identity. But it was the background that truly alarmed him. He recognized the wood-paneled walls immediately. They belonged to the hidden room in Marco's basement, the chamber where he had imprisoned and abused Lucia for years. Dr. Evan sat back in his chair, the implications sinking in. Whoever had created this account had access to that house and that room. But Marco was in prison serving a life sentence. Who else knew about that space? Who else had the keys or the access codes? He wiped the search history from the computer and logged out, his mind racing with possibilities. As he left the library, he realized his route back to the clinic would take him past both Marco's old house and his own abandoned property. It had been months since he'd driven down that street, deliberately avoiding the painful memories associated with those places. Dr. Evan headed for the parking lot, a sense of urgency building in his chest. Lucia had left home this morning in her school uniform. She had appeared briefly at the back of the assembly hall before disappearing again, and someone with access to Marco's old basement was posting explicit images of her online. As Dr. Evan drove away from the school, he dialed Daniela's workplace. After explaining who he was to the receptionist, he was put through to Lucia's mother. "Dr. Evan, is everything okay?" Daniela's voice carried a note of immediate concern. "Daniela, I'm at the school, and Lucia isn't here. They've marked her absent today." "What? That can't be right. We left the house together this morning," Daniela replied, confusion evident in her tone. "She was wearing her uniform, carrying her backpack. She took the bus to school while I dropped Camilla at your clinic's playground before heading to work." "She hasn't been in any of her classes," Dr. Evan explained. "I thought I glimpsed her briefly during my presentation, but she disappeared before I could speak with her." There was a long pause before Daniela spoke again, her voice tight with fear. "Is she in danger, Evan? After everything we've been through—" "I don't know," he admitted, reluctant to add to her worry, but unwilling to hide the truth. "There's something else you should know. Some inappropriate photos of Lucia from 3 years ago have surfaced online and are circulating at school." "Oh, God," Daniela whispered. "Those photos from the case? The detective called me this morning, but I was too busy. I couldn't pick up. Lucia didn't seem well this morning, but when I asked her if she wanted to stay home today, she insisted she was fine and that she still wanted to go to school." This new information troubled Dr. Evan. If Lucia knew about the photos but still chose to go to school, what had happened to make her disappear later? "Do you think we should call the police?" Daniela asked, panic rising in her voice. "Where could she be if not at school?" "Let's not jump to conclusions yet," Dr. Evans said, trying to stay calm for Daniela's sake. "The police are already investigating the leaked photos. Let me do some checking around first, and I'll call you right back." After ending the call, Doctor, Evan continued driving, his route deliberately taking him toward his old neighborhood. As he approached Marco's former house, he slowed down, parking his car a few houses away. The property looked different than he remembered. The once neglected lawn had been mowed, and someone had planted colorful flowers along the walkway. A bicycle leaned against the front porch, suggesting new inhabitants had moved in. As Dr. Evan sat watching the house, his phone rang, his nurse assistant Rosa calling from the clinic. "Dr. Latham, where are you?" she asked without preamble. "Your first patient arrived 15 minutes ago, and we have a full schedule today." "I'm sorry, Rosa. Something urgent came up," he explained. "Could you reschedule my appointments for the next hour? I need a little more time." "Is everything all right?" Rosa's voice softened with concern. "I'm not sure yet. I'll explain when I get to the clinic. Just give me another 30 minutes. After ending the call, Doctor, Evan continued observing Marco's old house. A few minutes later, the front door opened, and a man stepped out to check the mailbox. He appeared to be in his 30s, with a shaved head and muscular build, nothing like the shadowy figure from the profile picture with the emo-style hair. The man lingered in the front yard, his gaze sweeping up and down the street as if searching for something or someone. After a moment, he retreated inside, closing the door firmly behind him. Dr. Evans' suspicions deepened. The man's behavior seemed oddly vigilant for a routine check of the mail. Deciding to investigate further, he drove a short distance down the street to his own abandoned house. The property looked exactly as he remembered it. Slightly overgrown garden, fading paint on the trim, an air of neglect that explained why it had been difficult to sell. He pulled into the driveway and sat for a moment, memories washing over him of the night he discovered the truth about Marco and Lucia. With a deep breath, Dr. Evan exited his car and approached the front door. He inserted his key, half expecting it not to work after so much time, but the lock turned smoothly. The door swung open to reveal his old living room, furniture still in place, exactly as he'd left it when he moved out 3 years ago. He stepped inside, flipping the light switch. The electricity was still connected, something he maintained in the hope of eventually selling the property. Everything seemed undisturbed, his old couch covered with a protective sheet, bookshelves emptied of personal items, but still standing against the walls, kitchen appliances unplugged but present. Dr. Evan moved through the house methodically, checking each room for signs of intrusion or occupation. Nothing seemed amiss until he reached the guest bedroom, where he noticed the closet door slightly ajar when he distinctly remembered closing everything before leaving. After confirming the upstairs was empty, he returned downstairs, switched off the lights, and headed for the door, satisfied that the house remained unoccupied. He had just locked the front door when a loud thump from inside stopped him in his tracks. The sound had come from below, from the basement. A chill ran down his spine as he realized he hadn't checked that part of the house. Unlocking the door again, Dr. Evan stepped back inside and moved toward the basement door located off the kitchen. He hesitated, then pulled out his phone, keeping it ready to dial 911 as he slowly turned the knob. The basement stairs creaked under his weight as he descended, feeling along the wall for the light switch. When the fluorescent lights buzzed to life, Dr. Evan froze in shock. His once empty basement had been transformed into a makeshift photography studio. Black curtains draped the walls, professional lighting equipment stood positioned around the space, and a raised platform with various backdrops dominated the center of the room. But what truly horrified him was the teenage girl lying crumpled on the floor beside the platform. She was only partially dressed, her school uniform shirt open, her skirt hitched up inappropriately high. Her eyes were unfocused, her movements sluggish, clear signs of sedation. Dr. Evan rushed to her side, medical training overriding his shock. He checked her pulse, finding it steady but slow. Her pupils were dilated, and her skin felt clammy to the touch. She appeared severely dehydrated and drugged, likely with some kind of sedative. "Can you hear me?" he asked, gently shifting her into a more comfortable position. "I'm a doctor. I'm going to help you." The girl mumbled something unintelligible, her head lolling to the side. Dr. Evan quickly dialed 911. "This is Dr. Evan Latham. I need police and an ambulance at 1478 Oakwood Drive immediately. I found a teenage girl who appears to have been drugged and possibly assaulted." As he gave the dispatcher details, he heard the unmistakable sound of the front door closing upstairs. Someone had been in the house and was now fleeing. "Send police now," he urged into the phone. "The perpetrator may still be on the premises." Setting his phone on speaker so the dispatcher could hear, Dr. Evan rushed up the basement stairs. By the time he reached the front door and looked outside, he caught only a glimpse of someone in a black hoodie running down the street. The figure jumped into a waiting car driven by another person, and the vehicle sped away before Dr. Evan could make out the license plate. Returning to the basement, he focused on providing first aid to the girl while awaiting emergency services. Her condition was stable but concerning. Whoever had drugged her had administered a significant dose. As he monitored her vital signs, the girl began murmuring more coherently. Dr. Evan leaned closer to hear her words. 4, 2, 9, 1. She whispered, the sequence of numbers punctuated by shallow breaths. "Marco's house, 8, 7, 5, 0. Dr. Evan realized she was reciting what sounded like access codes, one for Marco's house and another combination he didn't recognize. He quickly noted the numbers in his phone, suspecting they might be crucial for whatever was happening. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance, drawing closer. Dr. Evan positioned himself at the top of the basement stairs, ready to direct the first responders to the victim while trying to process the disturbing revelation that someone had been using his abandoned home as a studio for exploitative photography, possibly the same someone who had uploaded Lucia's photos online. And if this girl was here, where was Lucia? Police cruisers and an ambulance arrived within minutes, their lights painting the quiet suburban street in flashes of red and blue. Officers secured the perimeter while paramedics rushed to attend to the drugged teenager in the basement. Detective Russell, whom Dr. Evan had spoken with earlier that day, was among the responding officers. His expression was grim as he surveyed the makeshift photo studio. "Dr. Latham," he acknowledged, pulling out a notepad. "I need you to walk me through exactly what happened here." Dr. Evan explained how he'd come to check on his abandoned property after noticing suspicious activity and discovering the girl in the basement. "I haven't been inside this house for nearly 3 years, he emphasized. "I had no idea someone was using it this way." The detective's gaze swept the basement, taking in the professional lighting, backdrops, and camera equipment. "And you just happened to check on this place today?" "After our conversation about the leaked photos?" "I was concerned, Doctor," Evan admitted. "The username you gave me, when I looked it up, the profile picture had Marco's basement in the background. I was driving past anyway and decided to stop." "So you conducted your own investigation after I specifically warned you not to get involved," Detective Russell said, his tone neutral but his meaning clear. Dr. Evans sighed. "I understand how it looks, Detective, but I wasn't trying to interfere with your investigation. I was concerned about Lucia and simply wanted to check on my private residence." Paramedics were now moving the girl onto a stretcher. One approached Detective Russell. "She's stable but heavily sedated. We need to get her to the hospital immediately for toxicology and to check for signs of assault." As they carried the girl upstairs, Dr. Evan turned back to the detective. "She mentioned numbers before you arrived, what sounded like access codes. One set she specifically connected to Marco's house." He showed the detective the numbers he'd recorded on his phone. Detective Russell's expression shifted from skepticism to interest. "This could be useful," he acknowledged, copying the numbers into his notepad. "Now, Doctor Latham, we need to take your official statement." For the next half hour, Dr. Evan answered questions about his discovery, his relationship with Lucia and her family, and his limited knowledge of who might be behind the exploitation. "The man I saw running from my house wore a black hoodie and had dark hair," he explained. "He was picked up by someone in a car waiting at the end of the street." "We'll review neighborhood security footage," Detective Russell assured him. "Now, about these access codes. If they do indeed grant access to Marco Halcon's former residence, we'll need to check that property immediately." Dr. Evan nodded. "Someone moved in recently. I saw a man there earlier today, bald, muscular build, 30s. He seemed to be watching the street." While other officers continued processing the scene at Dr. Evan's house, Detective Russell organized a team to investigate Marco's former home. Dr. Evan insisted on accompanying them, his concern for Lucia overriding any caution. "This isn't standard procedure," Detective Russell warned as they approached Marco's house. "I understand, Doctor," Evan replied, "but I know both properties, and I know Lucia. If she's in danger, I want to help." The detective reluctantly agreed, positioning Dr. Evan safely behind the officers as they approached the front door. One of them knocked firmly, announcing police presence. The bald man Dr. Evan had seen earlier opened the door, surprise evident on his face. "Can I help you, officers?" Detective Russell showed his badge. "Santa Rosa Police Department. We're investigating a situation that may be connected to this property. Are you the owner?" "Just moved in 5 days ago," the man confirmed, his accent suggesting he wasn't from the area. "Bought it last month. Is there a problem?" "Sir, are you aware of this house's history?" Detective Russell asked. The man shook his head. "No, not really. It was listed at a great price compared to other places in this neighborhood. Is there something I should know?" "This house was previously owned by a man convicted of serious crimes," the detective explained. "We have reason to believe someone may be accessing your property without your knowledge, particularly the basement area. Would you allow us to check?" "The basement?" The man looked genuinely confused. "That's the thing. I can't even get down there. There's a keypad lock on the door, and the property manager never gave me the code. I've been trying to contact them about it for days." Dr. Evan and Detective Russell exchanged significant looks. "Sir, with your permission, we'd like to try a code that might open that basement," Detective Russell said. "We have reason to believe there may be criminal activity taking place there." The homeowner stepped back, gesturing for them to enter. "Be my guest. If someone's been sneaking into my house, I want to know about it." They followed him to a door off the kitchen, the entrance to the basement that Dr. Evan remembered from the night of Lucia's rescue 3 years earlier. A new electronic keypad had been installed where the original lock had been. "The previous lock was removed during the police investigation," Detective Russell murmured to Dr. Evan. "Someone must have installed this later." The detective entered the first set of numbers the girl had provided, 8750. The keypad beeped, and the lock disengaged with a click. "That's impossible," the homeowner said, his eyes wide. "How did you know the code?" "We need to check your basement, sir," Detective Russell replied, drawing his weapon. "Please stay up here with this officer while we investigate." Dr. Evan remained behind the detective and 2 other officers as they descended the stairs, their flashlights illuminating the dim space ahead. The basement appeared largely unchanged from what Dr. Evan remembered, the main area still unfinished with exposed beams and concrete floor. "Lucia?" Dr. Evan called out, his voice echoing in the space. "Are you down here?" A faint whimpering sound came from the far corner, from behind the false wall that had concealed Marco's hidden room. Detective Russell signaled for the officers to move forward cautiously. The false panel that had once hidden the entrance to Marco's secret chamber now stood slightly ajar. One of the officers pushed it open fully, revealing the room beyond. Dr. Evans' heart sank at what they found. Lucia was huddled beneath a table, dressed in clothes far too revealing for a 17-year-old girl. A camera setup similar to the one in his basement stood in the center of the room, lights positioned to illuminate the bed where Marco had once photographed and abused his daughter. "Lucia," Dr. Evans said gently, approaching slowly while the officers secured the room. "It's Dr. Evan. You're safe now." She looked up, her eyes wide with fear and swimming with tears. When she recognized him, she crawled out from her hiding place and launched herself into his arms, sobs racking her body. "They said they'd take Camilla," she cried, clinging to her. "They said they'd hurt her if I didn't do what they wanted." Detective Russell holstered his weapon, his expression grim as he surveyed the scene. "Get her upstairs," he instructed Dr. Evan. "We'll process this room and call for another ambulance. She'll need medical attention." As Dr. Evan helped Lucia up the stairs, he couldn't shake the horror of what they'd discovered. Somehow, 3 years after her rescue from Marco's abuse, Lucia had once again been trapped in the same nightmare, in the same room where her trauma had begun. In the living room of what was once Marco's house, Lucia sat wrapped in a blanket provided by one of the female officers. Dr. Evan remained beside her on the couch, while the bewildered new homeowner spoke with detectives in the kitchen. "Can you tell us what happened, Lucia?" Detective Russell asked gently, sitting across from her. "How did you end up back in that basement?" Lucia's hands trembled as she clutched the blanket tighter around her shoulders. "It started a few weeks ago," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "I got a note in my locker at school. It had a picture of Camilla at the playground in Dr. Evans' clinic. The note said if I didn't cooperate, they would take her." Dr. Evan felt a chill run through him at the mention of his clinic's playground. "I ignored it at first," Lucia continued. "I thought it was just a cruel prank. But then more notes came with more pictures of Camilla, at preschool, in our yard, even sleeping in her bed." Her voice broke. "They were watching her all the time. They knew our routines, when Mom would drop her off. Everything." "Do you know who they are?" Detective Russell asked. Lucia shook her head. "I never saw their faces clearly. They always wore hoodies or hats pulled low, but there were 3 of them, 2 who worked here, taking the pictures, and another one who drove them." "And they brought you here today instead of school?" "No, I went to school first," Lucia explained. "I thought I could handle it. Then I started seeing the photos on everyone's phones." Her eyes filled with fresh tears. "Those pictures, from before, with my father, they were everywhere. People were laughing, whispering." Dr. Evan placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "I saw some students looking at them during my visit. I'm so sorry, Lucia." "When I couldn't take it anymore, I tried to leave," she continued. "But they were waiting for me outside. They showed me a live video of Camilla on their phone. She was at the daycare in Dr. Evans' clinic. They said if I didn't go with them right now, their friend would take her." Detective Russell leaned forward. "These men, did they tell you why they were doing this?" "They said this is where they've always operated," Lucia replied. "They change the basement lock and only come when the house is empty. They're good at duplicating keys and breaking in without leaving traces." "The house was vacant until recently," Dr. Evans realized aloud. "They must have been using it freely until the new owner moved in." "They seemed angry about that," Lucia confirmed. "They talked about needing to find a new location soon. That's when they started using Dr. Evans' empty house, too." One of the officers who had been searching the basement approached Detective Russell, holding an evidence bag containing shredded paper. "Sir, we found these in the trash can downstairs. Looks like they tried to destroy some kind of transaction record." The detective examined the fragments through the plastic. "Good work. Get these to forensics immediately. They might help us identify who's behind this." He turned back to Lucia. Do you have any idea where these men might be based when they're not here? Lucia hesitated, then nodded. I think they operate out of a bar on Willow Street. I heard them talking about it while they were setting up the camera. One of them said something about the back room at Rusty's being their real base. Rusty's Bar, Detective Russell repeated, making a note. We know that place. It's had numerous code violations over the years. A female paramedic entered the living room, kneeling in front of Lucia. I need to check your vitals and make sure you're okay. Is that all right? Lucia nodded, allowing the medic to take her blood pressure and check her pupils for signs of drugging. She doesn't appear to have been sedated like the other girl, the paramedic reported to Detective Russell. But her heart rate is elevated, and she's showing signs of extreme stress. I'm okay, Lucia insisted. They didn't touch me that way. They were focused on that other girl first. They said I was a special and needed proper preparation before they started with me. She shuddered at the memory. This is unbelievable, Dr. Evans said, struggling to contain his anger. These people are using other people's basements to operate, knowing the homeowners will be the ones caught in the initial investigation if they're discovered. It's sadly not uncommon, Detective Russell explained. They set up in vacant or rarely used properties, creating just enough time to escape if discovered. The homeowner deals with the police while they relocate their operation elsewhere. Another officer approached with additional evidence. Detective, we found more transaction records. These weren't shredded. He handed over several papers in evidence bags. Detective Russell examined them closely, his expression darkening. These appear to be payment records for acquiring digital files. He looked up at Lucia. Did these men say anything about how they got hold of the original photos of you and your father? They said they had connections in the prison, Lucia replied, that my father had given them access to his collection in exchange for new pictures of me. My God, Dr. Evan whispered, the full scope of the horror becoming clear. Marco is still controlling things from prison. Detective Russell nodded grimly. These records confirm it. There's a guard's name here and an address for delivery of physical materials. He turned to the officer beside him. Get this to headquarters immediately. We need a team at Rusty's Bar and another at this address. He handed over one of the evidence bags. As officers mobilized around them, Dr. Evan kept his focus on Lucia, who seemed to be processing the reality of her situation. I want to see my mom and Camilla, she said finally, looking up at him with red-rimmed eyes. I need to know she's safe. We'll take you to the police station, Detective Russell assured her. Your mother will meet you there, and I'll personally send an officer to check on your daughter at Dr. Latham's clinic. Dr. Evan nodded gratefully. My staff would never let anyone unauthorized near the children, but an extra police presence would be reassuring for everyone. As they prepared to leave, the new homeowner approached, his expression a mixture of shock and sympathy. I had no idea about any of this, he said to Lucia. I'm so sorry for what happened to you in this house. I'll be selling it as soon as possible. Lucia nodded silently, unable to form a response. Dr. Evan guided her toward the door, where a police cruiser waited to transport her to the station. As they stepped outside, Lucia paused, looking back at the house that had been the site of so much pain. I never thought I'd be back here, she whispered. I never thought he could still hurt me from prison. This ends today, Doctor, Evan promised her. They won't get away with this. The Santa Rosa police station hummed with activity as officers processed evidence and coordinated the raid on Rusty's Bar. In a quiet interview room, Lucia sat wrapped in a fresh blanket, a cup of untouched hot chocolate on the table before her. When the door opened and Daniela rushed in with Camilla in her arms, Lucia broke down completely. She stood on shaky legs, reaching for her daughter. "Mommy!" Camilla cried, practically launching herself from her grandmother's arms into her mother's embrace. "You didn't come get me?" "I'm here now, baby," Lucia sobbed, clutching her tightly. "I'm so sorry. Mommy loves you so much." Daniela enveloped both of them in her arms, tears streaming down her face. "Are you hurt? Did they hurt you?" "I'm okay, Mom," Lucia assured her, though her trembling voice suggested otherwise. "They didn't get the chance to do what they planned." Dr. Evans stood by the door, watching the reunion with mixed emotions. Relief that Lucia was safe, rage at those who had terrorized her, and deep concern about the lasting impact of this second trauma. Detective Russell entered the room, his expression tentatively optimistic. "I have some updates," he announced. "The raid on Rusty's bar was successful. We apprehended 2 men matching the descriptions Lucia provided. The third man, the driver, managed to escape, but we have his vehicle's license plate from security footage. It's just a matter of time before we locate him." "What about the girl from Dr. Evans' basement?" Lucia asked, still holding Camilla protectively. "She's receiving treatment at the hospital," the detective replied. "She's also a student at your school, grade 11. Her parents are with her now. She was heavily sedated, but doesn't appear to have been physically assaulted yet. You likely saved her from that by distracting them." Lucia nodded, burying her face in Camilla's hair to hide fresh tears. "The 2 men we arrested are already talking," Detective Russell continued. "They're each trying to blame the other to get a better deal. They've confirmed what Lucia told us. They were operating under Marco Halcon's remote direction from prison." "How is that possible?" Daniela demanded. "He's supposed to be in maximum security." According to their statements, they approached Marco months ago with a proposition. In exchange for photographing Lucia and smuggling the images to him in prison, he would give them access to his dark web account where he had stored backups of all his original photographs. "And he was very specific about where the pictures had to be taken," Russell added. "Marco insisted on his old basement, the place where it all began. In his own words, that's why the crew kept sneaking back into that house even after it was sold." Dr. Evans' stomach turned at the thought. "So they could sell or distribute them." "Exactly," the detective confirmed. Marco apparently had quite a reputation in certain dark corners of the Internet. His work still has value to the right buyers. He said the last part with evident disgust. Daniela sank into a chair, her face ashen. "Will this nightmare ever end? 3 years in prison, and he's still finding ways to hurt my daughter?" "We're already in contact with the prison authorities," Detective Russell assured her. "Marco will be transferred to a more restrictive facility with no access to visitors or outside communication. And the guard who helped smuggle materials will be facing criminal charges." Lucia looked up, her eyes hollow with exhaustion and despair. "It doesn't matter what happens to him now," she said quietly. "Those pictures are out there. People at school have seen them. They've probably already made copies. The dark web never forgets anything." She kissed Camilla's forehead, her next words breaking Dr. Evans' heart. "I'm so sorry you were born into this, baby. It's not fair to you. None of this is fair." Camilla, innocent to the weight of her words, simply patted her wet cheek. "No cry, Mommy. No cry." Detective Russell cleared his throat. "We'll be bringing charges against everyone involved in this operation. The 2 men we arrested, the prison guard, the driver when we catch him, and we'll be adding new charges against Marco Halcon for orchestrating it all from prison." "What about the photos at school?" Lucia asked. "Everyone's seen them." "The school has implemented a strict policy against phones," Dr. Evan reminded her, "and the principal is taking this very seriously. There will be consequences for any student found sharing those images." "Dr. Latham is right," Detective Russell added. "Plus, distributing those images is a crime. They're considered child exploitation material. We'll be working with the school to address this situation and educate students about the serious legal consequences of sharing such content." Lucia nodded, though she didn't appear convinced. "It still happened. People still saw. They'll still whisper and stare." A heavy silence fell over the room, broken only by Camilla's soft babbling as she played with her mother's necklace, blissfully unaware of the crisis surrounding her. "I can't do this anymore," Lucia finally whispered. "Every time I think we're safe, he finds another way to hurt us. It's never going to end." "Don't say that," Daniela pleaded, taking her daughter's hand. "We can't let him win. We've come too far, fought too hard." "Your mother's right," Dr. Evans said gently. "What happened today was horrific, but you survived. You protected Camilla. You helped save another girl from experiencing what you endured. That takes extraordinary courage." Lucia looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so tired of being brave. I just want to be normal." Dr. Evan moved closer, kneeling to meet her eye level. "I know this feels overwhelming right now, but I promise you, we will get through this, all of us, together. We'll push for Marco to be moved to a facility where he can never reach you again. We'll work with your school to address the fallout from the leaked photos, and I'll personally support whatever you need. Therapy, time away, anything." "Why?" Lucia asked, her voice small. "Why do you care so much about us?" Dr. Evan considered her question seriously. "Because 3 years ago, you trusted me with your truth when you had every reason not to trust anyone. You showed me what real courage looks like. And because you and Camilla and your mother have become like family to me." Detective Russell discreetly excused himself, giving the family space for this intimate conversation. "He's right, mi amor," Daniela said softly. "We're not alone in this fight. We never have been." Camilla reached out from her mother's lap, patting Dr. Evan's cheek with a chubby hand. "Dr. Evan, fix Mommy," she declared with childish certainty. Despite everything, a small smile tugged at Lucia's lips. If only it were that simple, baby. "The healing process isn't simple," Dr. Evan acknowledged, "but it is possible. Every day you get up, take care of Camilla, go to school, and live your life. That's a victory. Every moment of joy you experience is something Marco can't take from you." Lucia lifted Camilla higher in her arms, pressing her cheek against hers. "For her," she whispered. "I'll keep going for her." "And for yourself, Doctor," Evan added gently. "You deserve a full life, Lucia, free from fear and shame." Detective Russell returned, knocking lightly on the doorframe. "I just received word that we've located the third suspect, the driver. He was trying to leave town on a bus. He's in custody now." Relief washed over Lucia's face, some of the tension visibly leaving her shoulders. "So it's really over?" "This chapter is," Detective Russell confirmed. "We'll make sure all 3 men face the maximum penalties allowed. And we're already working with the Tech Crimes Unit to track down and remove the photographs from circulation as much as possible." "I know that won't erase them completely," Lucia said, showing wisdom beyond her years. "Once something's online, it's never truly gone, but thank you for trying." As the day's events caught up with her, exhaustion settled over Lucia like a heavy blanket. Camilla, sensing her mother's fatigue, had grown quiet in her arms, her head resting on her shoulder. "You should go home and rest, Doctor," Evan suggested. "It's been a traumatic day." Daniela nodded in agreement. "I've already called off work for the rest of the week. We'll stay home, just the 3 of us." "I'll come by tomorrow to check on you, Doctor," Evan promised. "And I'll speak with Principal Samuels about ensuring a safe environment when you're ready to return to school." As they prepared to leave, Lucia paused, turning back to Doctor. "Evan." "You saved me again," she said simply. "Thank you for not giving up." Dr. Evan shook his head. "You saved yourself, Lucia. You were smart enough to leave those clues, brave enough to face your fears. I just followed the breadcrumbs you left behind." "Still," Daniela interjected, "we wouldn't have made it through any of this without you, Evan. You're part of our family now, whether you like it or not." She smiled, the first genuine smile since this crisis began. "I'm honored, Doctor," Evan replied sincerely. As he watched them leave the police station, Camilla waving sleepily over Lucia's shoulder, Dr. Evan reflected on the long journey they had all shared. 3 years ago, he had been simply a family physician who noticed something amiss with a teenage patient. Now he was deeply intertwined with their lives, a guardian of sorts, committed to their well-being. The past might never fully release its grip on Lucia. The photos that had been distributed could resurface years from now. The trauma she had endured would always be part of her story. But what mattered most was that her story would continue, with new chapters of healing, growth, and joy alongside the painful ones. And as long as he drew breath, Dr. Evan would ensure she never faced those chapters alone. Some bonds, forged in crisis and strengthened through recovery, transcended ordinary relationships. They became something more profound, a chosen family built not on blood, but on compassion, trust, and the unwavering belief in each other's worth. In a world that had shown Lucia its darkest corners, Dr. Evan and Daniela would continue to illuminate the path forward, one day at a time, until Lucia could fully see the light of her own remarkable resilience and the unlimited potential of her future.